I wanted to tell you that Gabor actually invented techniques or manners, ways of letting the subject into his photographs. And recently, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, he made a series of photographs of les impatients. You know, it's a group of people that have some mental problems, some behavioral problems, and they go to this place to express themselves, and it's on Sherbrooke Street. And the government is very close to this organization, and he made a series of photographs of these disturbed people in. But in order to give them a chance to be alive in his photographs and not be documents, medical documents, of schizophrenic or whatever it is, he invented the following way of doing it. He set up his camera, he set up a chair in front of the camera, and he connected the camera to a pair that could be pressed and would take the picture. And then the person, set in front of the camera, had the chair, this pair in his hand. Whenever he felt ready to be photographed, he pressed it and he took his own photographs through Gabor's setup and his camera and his eye. And that was so extraordinary because when you feel confident, he took one of me too, Peter, because I'm really slightly disturbed too. So and that's a very good reason for taking a photograph. And so I sat there, he showed me, and when I felt really comfortable, I pressed that pair and I was very happy. So he gave the people an experience of taking the picture that he takes by themselves. And that's another aspect of his, let me say, genius of portraiture.
Most of, this was one aspect, les impatients, the self-portraits, but most of them, I took the photographs, but what I did, I asked them how would they like to be photographed? Sitting, standing, close up, head and shoulder, and I gave them the chance to make this decision, because when you go to chez les portraitistes, c'est toujours le portraitiste qui est en contrôle, parce qu'il veut produire une photographie que le client va acheter. Et moi, je voulais pas être en contrôle. Contrôle, c'était l'éclairage et le temps d'exposition, c'est tout. Mais je leur ai donné la chance de se poser devant l'appareil, comme ils veulent.
Mais je pense que tu fais souvent ça avec tous tes portraits aussi.
Yeah.
I mean, you leave, there's a sense, there's a feeling that you're there, but that your sitters speak a lot. Like you let them be.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and alors il faut pas, j'ai jamais forcé les gens d'être photographiés. Mais les meilleurs portraits arrivent, à mon avis, si moi j'ai le désir de photographier une personne et cette personne veut être photographiée par Gabor Szilasi. Là, vraiment, on établit un rapport qui fonctionne bien. Quand je vous regarde, par exemple, comme ça, je pourrais choisir n'importe quel d'entre vous et je vous photographier tel que vous êtes assis maintenant, sans rien changer. Vous êtes tous extraordinaires comme sujet.
Well, one final question about portraiture. Leo, would you like to say anything about your own portrait of Gabor, or that process of making a picture, a painting of him?
Well, I don't think it has any bearing on our meeting here tonight, except that in a painting you do something quite different from photography. It really there's no comparison. There's no comparison. And I attempted to render Gabor's physical aspect up to a certain point, and also his, I would say, his emotional aspect through the photograph. But that is an entirely automatic. I don't think I would bring that up right now.
Michel, do you remember when Gabor made your picture in Disraeli?
Ouais, je me souviens. Je suis pas trop certain que je me souviens précisément. Mais c'est une photographie, je me suis précisément de l'instant où je me souviens de la présence. Non, mais je me souviens. Yeah, oui. Mais je me souviens très bien. Dernièrement, dans l'exposition, et cette exposition, cette photographie, parce que Gabor m'a donné une copie à l'époque que j'ai depuis 1972, et cette photographie est quelque part dans un projet autour des archives photographiques. Alors cette photographie, elle est présente autour de moi. Et j'en parlais avec une amie, et je lui disais, ce qui me fascinait dans cette photographie de moi à 24 ans, à d'Israéli, c'est que plus rien de ce qui existe sur cette photo, plus rien de ce qui est sur les murs, de ce que j'avais disposé sur les murs, mes anciennes photographies, les artefacts de journaux, des éléments pour stimuler ma pensée, ma réflexion, des livres, mon linge, une serviette de cuir, une lampe, presque plus rien n'existe de tout cela. Et j'étais un peu atterré à la fois. Plus rien n'existe sauf quelques livres, peut-être je semble reconnaître un Walker Evans, mais aussi un time-life de la photographie. Le time-life sur la photographie documentaire que j'avais emmené avec moi d'Israéli, dans lequel en particulier, il y avait un chapitre sur l'expérience personnelle de la photographie documentaire avec le travail d'un photographe new-yorkais, Arthur Freed, des autoportraits avec une tension assez palpable de ses relations avec sa femme, par exemple. Et c'est quelque chose qui m'avait beaucoup impressionné, qui avait eu une influence, qui avait nourri mon questionnement sur ce qu'allait devenir mon travail ultérieurement. Et aussi le fait, je me souviens aussi que dans les rééditions subséquentes de Time Life, le chapitre sur la photographie personnelle était complètement évacué, disparu. Arthur Freed a fait une présence rapide au firmament de la notoriété, et son travail est disparu, et Arthur Freed est disparu avec, bien que je crois qu'il enseigne toujours quelque part à New York. Mais il y a quelque chose que j'aimerais quand même dire, terminer avec ça. En fait, dans cette photographie, il y a tout le regard inquiet du jeune homme assis seul sur le rebord de son lit, et je me surprends à penser que je suis là-bas, plus jeune que mon propre fils aujourd'hui.
Nostalgie.
Ben, en fait, il y a une autre chose que j'ai écrit. Non, c'est pas tant la nostalgie, il y a une autre chose que j'avais écrit, c'est je pense que quelque part, il y a une expérience, je sais pas, disons, je vais le dire comme ça, il y a une expérience de la cruauté dans les photographies, il y a une expérience du temps qui passe, et c'est une expérience quand même cruelle.
C'était mon intention. Mais j'ai pas réussi.
En général, Gabor, en général.
Tu as l'air très gentil sur la photo. Oui.
Well, in the last section, I want to return to something that Gabor was mentioning in the context of this about photographing in the present. And could you have the last quotation? This is a quotation that Gabor wrote in 1977, and it's one that I've pondered thought about a lot about in terms of motivation of artists and photographers, about what it is that you decide to make your subject. What you decide is important and worth your time and energy to photograph or to paint, that you feel that perhaps you can do alone that no one else will notice or take on. And I think it's a very rich idea about photography and about the nature of recording in the present and thinking about its relationship to the past and the future. So I wanted to ask each of our panelists again what their reaction is to this quotation and their attitude towards what they think is fundamentally important in their present to photograph. So perhaps could I begin with you, Aislinn?
Sure.
With that?
This is it's capturing the moment, right? This is
Yes.
well, I think with photography and with documentary photography, the moment is essential. It's capturing the scene, but also creating the photograph so that the viewer can share that sense of the reason why the photographer photographed it, but also chose that frame to exhibit it or to show it. And I think why that moment is so key is that it freezes a moment in time. And those moments in time is that we don't freeze it the same way a camera freezes it. And so they become memories in time. And memories often get blurred or forgotten or fogged or half remembered. And so what the photographs do is that they remember that time, they remember that moment, and then sometimes the memories are based on the photograph. So the moment, in a sense, becomes this millisecond of a life. And I think that's what's so extraordinary with photography is that millisecond is captured and retained and be able to view it. And I think that's what's so magical about photography. A little anecdote. While the second time I came back to view the exhibit to choose my photograph, I was walking through the exhibit and there was two women that were ahead of me, and I sort of kept pace with them to go through this space and look at the photographs. And as they were looking at the photographs, they started talking about sort of their memories, and that had to do with the more architectural images of Montreal. And one specific image was I believe it was the classy sign. And these two women stood in front of the photograph and just talked about remembering going to shop there or remembering walking by there. And as they went on through these images, they kept remembering these sort of these times that they passed on the street. And I found that really extraordinary because they liked the image, but what the image did was stimulate a sense of memory for them. And I think that's also interesting with what documentary does.